First News with Keeler in the morning on WIBX and WIBX950.com.
Ryan Nobles, CNN, good morning. How are you?
Wow, just exciting to be with you guys running the ship all by yourselves. So far, you haven't crashed it into anything.
Well, you've obviously just joined us. You haven't been listening all morning.
We have 15 minutes too. So
the second thing is, I could just we just got a message from a guy named Jeff in New York Mills. He says, judging off Ryan's enthusiasm, he's really happy to be with these two losers today.
All right.
How you doing, man? What's going on?
I'm doing well. I'm sorry I missed you guys last week. I realized after the fact that I just completely forgot to call in, and I apologize for that.
That's no problem. So, hey, I want to play a game with you right now, Ryan. Who tweeted it? Ready? I'm going to read a series of 4 tweets, and you have to tell me who it was.
No chance this gets me in trouble. Yeah, go ahead.
Tweet number 1, just spoke to Sandy. Tweet number 2, hang in there, everybody. We're going to play tonight. Tweet number 3, well, game is canceled. We tried, but the weather didn't cooperate. My sincere apologies. Tweet number 4, we tried, but weather didn't cooperate. I can control some things, but that isn't one of them. Who tweeted it?
That's the owner of the New York Mets, Steve
That's
Cohen.
right.
Yes,
That's right.
I saw those play out as I was waiting for the game to start last night. I would have been very frustrated as a Met fan to be sitting there wondering if I should stay or go, and him tweeting like at around 8:30, hang in there, we're definitely going to get the game in. That would have made me a little frustrated.
Yeah, and then the game obviously gets canceled. Yeah,
I think his heart is in the right place, though. I mean, have you been to a baseball game before trying to wait out a rain delay, and you hear nothing from any of the official people involved, and you sit there wondering what was going to happen? I think he definitely was trying to give people the right bit of information, and it ended up blowing up in his face, which is too bad.
Yeah.
That is rough. So now the Mets play another doubleheader today, which I think is their 4th doubleheader in the last 2 weeks. It's outrageous.
As long as they get the wins.
I will say, though, I took my son, and so I did a thing when they were in Washington a couple weekends ago. They did one of these 7-inning doubleheaders, and it was a day-night doubleheader, which is the way that Major League Baseball works now. And they are only 7 innings, but I tell you what, I actually enjoyed the 7-inning experience. I took my son to the earlier game, and it was, a blazing hot day. It was 7 innings was the perfect amount of time for him to stay completely engaged in the game. And then I went home, went back and picked up my wife, and we went with another couple and watch the nightcap, and it was just a really fun experience. I think for a doubleheader, 14 innings is a lot more easy to handle than 18 innings if you're going to watch both games.
Yeah. Listen, I completely agree with that because 18 innings of baseball in one day is enough to last you probably a whole week. But Ryan, let me ask you this: they don't adjust the ticket prices. So, for instance, there's a doubleheader today, a 2:00 game and a 7:00 game. If I, as a fan, bought my tickets, I don't know, last week for this Wednesday night game, this originally scheduled 7 p.m. Wednesday night game, I paid full price. Now I get...
Do you get to go to the first game, though?
No, I get like 20% less game almost.
I think, though, I think every ball club does it different, but I do believe that when there's a rainout, and especially a rainout that then becomes a doubleheader, it's not as though your ticket becomes a ticket to the game that it replaces. I'm pretty sure in Washington what they do is they just give you credit for a future game, especially if you buy it through the Nationals. So, like if you buy it at StubHub or something like that, then you might be out of luck. But I'm pretty sure the way it works is that it's credit for a future game as opposed to you have to show up. If you had plans to go at 7:00 on a Tuesday night and the game's at 2:00 on a Wednesday afternoon, you got to go to that game.
No, Ryan,
right.
I think you're absolutely right about that. I think a lot of times they'll give you tickets to a future game if you can't make it because they understand people travel and they don't want to discourage that. They don't want somebody to have a bad experience and go, oh, well, I'll never do that again because if it's rained out, I'm SOL. But at the same time, if I bought tickets for the Wednesday night game expecting a 9-inning full game, I'm only getting 7.
Right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And so, I rarely buy tickets through the team itself. I'm almost always buying on the secondary market. And with baseball in particular, you can wait right up until an hour before first pitch. And, you could end up getting really good seats for a reasonably good price because there's a lot of speculators in the ticket game who buy season tickets and jack up the prices hoping to get out ahead. and then with an hour before the game, they just need to unload something. You know, it's a little bit risky, especially if it's going to be a popular game and there might be a sellout. But in general, with baseball, because there's so many games, you can end up getting a pretty cheap seat.
Sticking with sports quickly, Sha'Carri Richardson, what are your thoughts on this? Originally, it was a 30-day ban, but now they say that she will not be running in the Tokyo Olympics. Do you know who the ban was instituted by?
I believe it's the International Olympic Committee's rules that said that you can't have a substance, you can't have marijuana in your system X amount of days before the event. And I think the U.S. Olympic Committee has a similar rule. So, you know, the problem with this is there's so many layers of jurisdiction, right? There's the local laws, there's the federal laws, then you have the U.S. OC laws, then you have the International Olympic Committee laws. Listen, I get it. The Olympic Committee statement yesterday made a lot of sense. We have these rules in place. You know what the rules are. You should have followed the rules. But it's also an incredibly dumb rule. There's just nothing beneficial to an athlete, particularly an athlete of that level of performance, to smoke marijuana. I mean, I would recommend against it from a training regimen, but there's absolutely no benefit that it provides someone like that,
especially in running.
Yes, exactly. You know, I think it's more of a character issue. And even that, you know, the changing perception of marijuana consumption in America, I mean, it's just been so rapid. It's like overnight it's become an accepted form of recreational use. And, you know, then when you put against the backdrop of it that she was dealing with the death of her mother, you know, that doesn't, you know, there's no carve-out in the rules for that. And, you know, the U.S. OC had a rule, and if they made an exception for her, it does open the floodgates. But, man, does it show just how archaic and how slow to catch up with the times these big kind of legacy institutions are that are just really tone-deaf, not only to the reality of what the world is like now, but also not in tune with their athletes, you know, who are the ones that make this whole thing work. You know, it's just a bunch of old people who've been doing it for a long time in faraway places who just aren't connected to the day-to-day. And, you know, I think a lot of these different athletic groups, you see it happening with soccer in Europe. You see it happening with the International Olympic Committee. It's even a problem with some of the major sports leagues in the United States. They just need to get a clue and be a little bit more progressive in their thinking. You know, I think one league that seems to understand that is the NBA. You know, they seem to be the most closely connected to their athletes and their fans, and they seem to be able to make changes pretty quickly to allow for that change to happen. And
again, this was a suspension from the U.S. or from the Olympic?
The Olympic Committee.
From the Olympic Committee?
Yeah, it was a 30-day ban.
But not the U.S. Olympic Committee?
I don't believe
that's a good question. I'm pretty sure it was. I think the rule exists at the International and U.S. Olympic Committee, but it was the U.S. Olympic Committee that made the decision not to put her on the roster.
Okay.
So there was, because of the length of the ban, she wasn't going to be able to compete in the 100 meters, which was her top event. She was not going to be able to compete in the 100 meters under any circumstances, and she was the gold medal favorite because of the timing of that. It was within the 30-day window, but there was a chance that she was going to be able to participate in the relay because that was outside the 30-day window, and the U.S. Olympic team made the decision yesterday not to put her on the team at all. So I believe the rule exists at both levels, but it was the U.S. Olympic Committee that made the decision to keep her off the roster.
You know, this is a tough situation, and I think personally I would side with the this is kind of an outdated rule here. I know there's plenty of states in the United States, including our own federal government, by the way, which marijuana is still illegal.
Yeah, are you surprised that there hasn't been a push for legislation federally under this administration?
There has been. I mean, it just is. You know, it gets bottled up in the House and Senate because there are still a lot of members of Congress that still view it as a kind of a gateway drug and could be problematic. But to your point about that, Jeff, even though it is technically still illegal in the U.S. Code, you know, back starting in the Obama administration, they made the decision to stop prosecuting marijuana offenses. So it's kind of it's a rule on the book that doesn't really have any, it doesn't have any oomph behind it. It doesn't exist. And I think the Jeff Sessions, when he was Attorney General, attempted to try and say that they were going to begin marijuana prosecutions again. But back, the Biden Attorney General's office under Merrick Garland has said the same thing. So it is still the law, but especially when you have this patchwork of states that have made it legal. It just became legal here in Virginia, where I live. It's legal in Washington, D.C. It's legal in New York, too, right? Didn't they allow a recreational?
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but
just
it's
this past year.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing in the way it's been rolled out.
Because
you can possess, but you can't grow. But dispensaries can't open yet. It's very confusing.
So I guess the other thing too. No, go ahead, Jeff.
No, go ahead, Ryan. I'm sorry.
Well, the other point I'm going to make is similar to the situation with the International Olympic Committee and the U.S. Olympic Committee. Is your individual employer may have a set of rules that go above and beyond what the state or local government allowed, and so I've had in many different job situations before I take a job. They will do a criminal background check and make you take a drug test that includes testing to whether or not you've got marijuana in your system. And so that is, there's a lot of companies that still require that, even though the laws in states have changed to allow it and say that it's illegal, that you can possess it, that you can grow it. So this is an example of kind of the patchwork of laws and rules that each individual person has to make sure that they adhere to.
Randy in Rome has a question for you, Ryan. Randy, go ahead. You're on.
Yeah, hey, good conversation, you guys. My question is, I understand, what happened with the runner. I don't know, was it the 200-meter or whatever, but one of my two questions I have is, now, I know she was banned for 30 days, but they were saying that why can't she still be part of the relay team, because that race is after her 30-day ban would be up. So I understand, yes, she took responsibility, and I commend her for that. But so we have these stupid rules, as we all agree, but let's try. I mean, this is the girl's American dream, right? She's a great athlete. Mm-hmm. She admitted, I'm not going to say she made a mistake, but she took responsibility for whatever she did in her life. But why keep her off the team?
Yeah.
Well, because she can't race in that one race, but
I think it's an issue of
for America.
All right,
and
Randy.
my other point is about the girl for protesting on the podium. That's allowed in the United States, but it's not allowed in the international community. We got to get these rules. This is crazy.
All right, Randy, thank you for your comment. We're running short on time. We'll let you listen off the air to the reaction.
Yeah, I was really surprised by that, too. The Olympic Committee, in their statement announcing the situation, didn't really explain why they weren't going to let her on the relay. And I don't know if it has something to do with the training involved in it. Was she not, because she's suspended for 30 days, is she unable to train with her fellow relay participants, which I would imagine would be important during that 30-day window? Is something about the travel situation, especially with COVID? I honestly don't know the answer to that. That raised a lot of eyebrows because there were a lot of people saying that there was that loophole. Yes, she wasn't going to be able to do the 100 meters, but she still would be able to do the relay. They never really explained that. At least they didn't that I saw. And it doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's unfortunate. The other point I think Randy made, which is a good one, is especially for Olympic athletes, the window of opportunity to participate in this thing that you worked your entire life for is so small. And when you miss it, that may be your only shot. And I think that, on top of everything else, is why this is so heartbreaking for this woman who, by every account, would have been a terrific representative for the United States around the world.
Two thoughts here. One on the spot that she gave up, or that she no longer has on the team. It might be a limited number of spots. So if she can't do the 100 meters, they're going to have to find somebody else to put in that spot.
They have alternates.
That's a good point. Yep.
The other thing is, what was the second thing? It's unfortunate, that she could work so hard and kind of, it just goes up in smoke, for lack of a better term. But she knows going in. See, the thing that bothers me.
That's the other thing, too. She knew the rule.
She knows going in what the rule is. Yeah. And I understand she had a situation with the family. She lost her mother. It's just unfortunate. I just hope this doesn't evolve into a conversation about, well, they kept her off the team. It becomes a race, this underhanded motivation that why would we keep somebody off the team like that? it's just an all around. It's too bad. I hope she's allowed to compete in the next one. I hope she wins a gold medal.
Ryan, thanks so much for joining us. We're short on time. We'll talk to you next week.
You know what? Bill doesn't even need to come back. You guys got it.
Oh, please. Thanks for getting in the mud with us, man. I hope you have a great week.
All right, guys. Have a good one. Go Mets.